this and setting it up.
Because as long as we've got a recording, then if nothing else, I mean, I'll go and throw this all over the place, and
Yeah.
tagged you in a post. Cool. All right, so I got something from you from Facebook where you tagged me. So I guess
Okay.
it showed up on me on my end. So whatever that works, whatever that means.
Let me see if I can find out where we are.
Right?
It should be on my business page. Okay, we're there.
Okay.
Perfect. All
Great.
right. So, hello, everyone.
Hi.
Let us know when you're in here. It took us some extreme lengths of technology knowledge to get on. Give us a hashtag live if you're watching live, a hashtag replay if you're watching the replay, and a hashtag new if you haven't tuned into this series before. This is episode 10 of Get Dreaming With, which is a series I do talking to dreamers all over the globe about their unique skills, recommendations, techniques, books, courses. And today I am interviewing the incredible Ian.
Hello. Thank you, Lana. It's good to see
Yeah.
you.
So Ian, he's been creating fine art, illustrations, writing for over 20 years. He regularly partners with medicinal plant and alternative healing organizations to write, edit articles on a whole bunch of really cool topics, including meditation, psychoactive research, lucid dreaming. Ian has written his first novel, which I have here, Tripping the Field, which is his first fully released fictional novel. And you are currently working on your second book, which you have over there.
Yes, it is. It's available now, actually. It's available for pre-sale. If that one's nonfiction. Migration, that is nonfiction. Tripping the Field, which is my first one, that is absolute lunacy. That is fiction, 100% nonsense. And the second one is nonfiction, and that is Migration. But both of them have the same. Both of them have the same ultimate goal. The core philosophy behind both is really the same thing. And I'm experimenting with trying to get a message across in a really unconventional way. So right now, yeah, Tripping the Field, the copy that you have, of course, that's available everywhere that you can get that on anywhere that books are sold. But Migration, now it's available as a pre-release through for like a Kindle or an ebook. You can get it right now for like $7.99. And if you go to my site, ianjaydid.com, I'm sure we'll link to all that. There are links to that. You can get it right now. Well, and it will download onto your Kindle on October 1st. And then also on October 1st, the paperback and everything else will also immediately become available, so that we'll have all of that's coming out in like 2 weeks. But yeah, they don't, Amazon, at least, you can't do a pre-order for paperbacks. They don't do that. You can do it for the Kindles, but not anything else. So
Gotcha.
that is where I'm at. And like I said, they both have everything I'm doing. I'm trying to find a way to. I've had these experiences much like you have. We're both lucid dreamers. We both have a history with lucid dreaming. And I've watched a lot of videos. I've read a lot of books on this topic, as well as you have, all the techniques and all of the ins and outs of this meditation, and maybe try this little technique before you go to bed and keep a dream journal. And I'm on board with all of that. But I think we've talked about this before. This came to me spontaneously. So I didn't go through any sort of technique. I didn't go through any sort of system to get at this. So my thing has always been, okay, so what's really going on? What is at the core behind this waking up? What is really going on there? And I'm trying to write from that perspective. I'm trying to extend this core information instead of just offering a technique or a little trick or a little, try this or something like this. I'm really trying to get underneath the surface. I'm trying to go deep and going, what is really at the source of waking up in your dream state? What does that really mean? And again, I've tried to do this in a couple of different ways. The first one, Tripping the Field, was fiction, because my attitude is you can get a lot of truth conveyed through fiction. You know, there's
A
a lot
lot.
of, it's all about how you tell that narrative, how you tell that story. So a
And
lot
it
of
doesn't
people, go
it
ahead.
doesn't surprise me that people, question whether it's fiction or not, because it does have that crossover element. And particularly for me, living in Boulder where it's set,
Oh yeah.
and a lot of the amazing psychedelics that you mentioned, it does have so much reality built into it.
There's a lot of truth to it. There's the techniques. There's a lot of shamanic techniques, and there's a lot of philosophy in tripping the field. That is, all of it's very real. The exact storyline, I mean, it's, as you get more into it, it's pure nonsense. And if that has happened, if any of this has actually played out, it wasn't in this universe, is all I can tell you. So that was in an alternate reality somewhere else where this came from. And but migration, the new one that I'm releasing right now, that one is a little bit more straightforward. Like I said, this is nonfiction, and this is more of a direct study where I'm trying to speak to the reader directly and saying, this is who I am. I'm able to wake up in my dream states. I am able to, what we call them, I call it astral projection. I've
Yeah.
learned over the years that is connected. I did not know this at first. When you have to understand that I started doing this now, oh gosh, I was 19 when all of this started with me. And
And
I had to find out naturally, like, oh, I started with lucid dreaming, and then all of a sudden it started moving on into where I was able to start witnessing other places, friends, family, where they were at while they were, while they were in motion, while they were moving around, going about their business. Well, I was technically asleep, but I was able to observe them. And I would come back with this information when I would wake up. So the book Migration, this book now, it's not it's not really a how-to manual as much as I'm trying to really get the reader into the mindset, the larger mindset, and I'm doing it in a really strange way that nobody, I don't think anyone's ever tried to do it this way. I'm doing it through a discussion of media, our relationship with media, and that means everything that you see on a screen or even
yep.
in a book, how you respond to media, uh, anything on the internet, on your phones, in movies, anything like that. Because I believe that, well, it's more than a belief, it's a direct observation. There's a relationship that we have between the mind, our mind, and media that
Mm.
is an exact reflection of consciousness to the mind. Let me explain that again, because
Yeah, go
it's
for
kind of
it.
strange. It sounds a little abstract. I believe that whatever consciousness is on a larger scale, consciousness is sort of, in a way, the way I like to describe it, it seems to be mesmerized by the mind. In a
Mm.
way, it's almost like consciousness is attached, it gets engrossed, or even perhaps you could say addicted to the mind, in a way.
Yeah.
And we become trapped, in a way, into our nervous system, into the physical body, to the point where we believe that we actually are these flesh and blood physical creations, the bodies that we are walking around in. But the same sort of confusion happens the more that we watch media as well, the more that we get involved in media. If you ever watch a movie and you get so sucked in that you almost forget where you are, you almost forget,
Yeah.
you become
We've
so
had
attached
this
to the
discussion
character where
here.
you're like, you become heart and soul connected to that character, or in a book where, a character dies or something like that, and you're like personally heartbroken.
Right.
What I'm trying to suggest is there are very strange mirror dynamics that are going on between the way we respond to things that are going on in our narratives that we watch, all of our entertainment, and the way our consciousness deals with this, deals with specifically the mind. So it's a strange way to attack this situation, but it's one way to try to. The way I think of media as, all of it is, it's a creation of the human brain. I mean, everything that we've created, all of our movies, all of our little videos and our stories, they're just creations of the human mind. So in many ways, all these things that we're looking at, that we're staring at, that we're mesmerized by on our phones, they are kind of like, it's the mind externalized is the way I think of media. It's like we're looking at an externalized version of the mind, and we're able to look at it. And so that's what this book is all about. I'm analyzing our relationship with media, but the book is not really about media. The book is really about how we relate, how this larger idea of consciousness relates to this smaller idea of the mind, is really what I'm trying to do. And I'm doing it for a very specific purpose. I'm trying to free us. That's always that's my ultimate goal always. I'm trying to explain all of this so that you are liberated from it, because for whatever reason, I'm able to step away from my dream state, my inner narrative. So let's talk about narrative just for a second. A narrative can happen on any level. A narrative can take place in a book, a narrative can take place on a screen, but a narrative can also take place in your head. Our relationship with it is exactly the same. And the way the brain deals with a narrative that's going on in the dream state and a narrative that's taking place on a screen is exactly the same. We know this. We have actual proof that this is the neurologically speaking, we deal with it exactly the same way. So I'm trying to free you from all of this. I'm trying to get everyone to be able to step away and step back and go, oh, none of this is really who I am. What we actually are is so much bigger than all of these identities, whether the identity is taking place in a story, in a book, on screen, some character, some, hero or whatever it is that we're following in some narrative, or if that identity is something that we're walking around with internally. The idea that you are Lana, I am Ian, we can detach from that in a way that is goes into very paranormal sort of activities. And that's where I believe that the astral projection steps in, that some people are able to completely disconnect from all of it, and either wake up in their dream state or completely detach from their bodies, and they can travel, elsewhere, outside. So that's what I'm after. That's what I'm trying to get at. We will see if I'm successful.
I mean, I'm loving it so far. I'm really loving Trip in the Field. I'm very excited about this book and how you're tapping into everything, as you said, in terms of really looking at the mind consciousness exploration and what the hell is going on, and what is this journey, right? And what is freedom for all of us? Let me take it back a little bit.
Take it back.
And I want to hear, I guess people tuning in, if they don't know you, they might want to know, like, how did this become? So I guess I'd like to ask, what, I know you said initially kind of this started coming to you naturally. Tell us a bit about the beginning of your work with dream work, with exploring consciousness, the mind, all this stuff. Where did that come from? Because, a lot of us go through a lot of humans go through their life not questioning any of these things at all, going to a 9-to-5 job, whatever, get some money, pay the bills, fuck it.
Right. You're caught up in your narrative, in your life's narrative. And that's really what it is. So many people are so caught up in it. You never stop and go, well, wait a minute. Is this really all that defines me? Is this really all it is? But yes. So there's a couple different answers to your question, because it's, in one way, in the biggest sense, this started right after I graduated from high school. And it was an interesting spot in your life. When you graduate high school, you've kind of finished that major kind of hurdle. You've kind of gotten past that, all the things that you were forced to do by the government, by the state, and you've graduated, and now you get to go, now what am I doing with myself? And so my first experience happened probably about 5-6 months after I graduated high school. I was about 19 or so, and my first experience with a lucid dream. Now, I didn't know it was a lucid dream. I had no name for it. I had no background with this. Again, I'm 48, so what at 19 the internet was not really a thing, so there was no way I could just go and Google, well, what did happen. I would have to hope that I could go find a book on what happened. So what the very first experience was a ultra realistic experience, and of course I'm sure you've mentioned this in many of your other shows, and this is true, I would imagine, for any lucid dreamer, that when you go into a lucid dream state, it has a quality that often seems more real than reality. And it's such a strange thing. And I would say that there's a reason for that. Now, I didn't know that at the time. Now, what happened in that exact dream is, I mean, we can go into the specific details if you want, but uh, all the best that I can say is that the experience was hyper real. And I came out of that experience. I woke up in my bed going, I know that what just happened was not typical. It was not normal. There was an unusual quality about this. And of course, the unusual quality was that I was fully aware that I was dreaming at the time. I was able to distance myself from the typical dream narrative. And I think that's the whole trick. Like that's kind of my whole thing that I keep on coming back to, that, a typical dream, a normal dream, is when you are just kind of following along some sort of little storyline in a narrative. You could be another person, you could have a different job, you could be on another planet. I mean, just think of the last dream you had. You're just kind of, like you said, mindlessly following along. You're not questioning it.
Yeah.
And this happens in people's lives, and this happens in your nightlife as well. So
Mhm.
that's why when I look at these tendencies, I'm like, this is happening whether you're awake or asleep. There is a core underneath all of that I'm always trying to get at. So when that first experience happened, I was absolutely blown away, and I had no idea what it was. I didn't know what was happening, and I was thirsty for knowledge at that point. I was dead set on figuring out what the heck was happening. And I found enough. I don't remember, Stephen LaBerge. Is that the guy who wrote? He wrote one of the initial just basic lucid dreaming work, and he has an institute in California, or he did for a while, the Lucidity Institute.
Yeah.
He was one of the first books that I picked up. So I'm like, okay, there is some study about this, and that made sense. Okay, it was a lucid dream. I was aware that I was dreaming. That was the weird quality about this. But as I recall, one of the first books I read, did not really describe that there can be another aspect to this where you can start getting into what they call astral projection. And I'm not a real fan of that word, but that is it's fine. It's a word. It's a phrase. And but then I started finding, as the months and the years went on. And by the way, this started once they kicked in for me. It's like I started having these every night, and some of these experiences would go on for hours in some cases. I mean, I would spend several hours in these lucid states, fully conscious, fully aware, in these dream worlds that were hyper realistic. I was fully aware that I was asleep, fully aware that I even kind of knew about what time it was, of the day. I could kind of feel like what position my body was laying in, and everything. I kind of was able to tap into that information. But then I was able to, after maybe a couple of years, I found that I could kind of go and visit people, people who I knew, and just observe what they were doing. And as a sort of a whim, as a test, after I'd wake up, I started, making some phone calls to mom, later on in the day, going, "Hey mom, you need to tell me exactly what were you doing at 7:30 this morning. I need you to explain the full details of exactly what you were doing." And to my horror, I started finding that it was exactly blow by blow what I was seeing in these states.
Mm.
And this just kept happening again and again, to the point where, there was no denying this is beyond coincidence. This isn't just me making something up. I'm somehow able to project outside of my, you know, the typical boundaries that we have been told exist. And it seems that those boundaries that we have been taught don't really exist for consciousness. It turns out it's just a way of looking at it. So I had to, like I said, it was kind of horrifying because I didn't want to hear that. I mean, everyone's like, "Oh, how exciting! How fun!" But it wasn't. To me, it was like that was kind of scary. Because I'm like, well, now I had to face the fact that this was not just something happening. I'm just in my bed and I'm just kind of having these this neat psychological fun time where I'm just kind of able to look at my subconscious in a new way. Now I had to face the idea that this is something even bigger than that. That I'm able to go outside of my physical body, whatever that means, whatever that entails. And I still don't have those answers of exactly what it all means, but that's where it started. But I said there was a couple different ways I could describe the beginning of this, because the reason I said that is because it was after I had started these lucid dreams when I was around 19 that I remembered that I had been doing this back in like elementary school, like when I was like a preteen or so, like 10, 11, somewhere around there. And it's like this flood of memories came back to me of that I used to be able to do this when I was a child. And I've read and I've talked to other lucid dreamers now where I guess that's fairly common actually, where a whole chunk of memories will then, it's like you tap into it and you realize, oh yeah, I used to do this. So it just went on from there, and it went on, and things just got stranger and stranger and stranger. It just kept on bringing up more and more questions about the nature of who we are, what is real, all those kind of questions that that I think
Yeah,
are the good questions that we should be asking right now.
they are good questions, and I completely agree with you. There's definitely not all the answers quite yet. I don't know if there ever really will be, as you said. And I don't know that we necessarily need there to be a definitive answer of the purpose of all these things, the reasons for psychedelics, lucid dreams, astral projection,
Yes.
visitation dreams, all of it. But I would say, even if we don't necessarily have a reason for it, we can still definitely create our own reasons for why and how we utilize them.
Right. That's what it's about. Exactly. You have to find your own purpose. Like, what is it that fascinates you about this? What
Yeah.
inspires you about this? And definitely, yeah.
Been doing this for, a long time. What would you say are your reasons for sticking with it? What are you utilizing these things for now in your life?
Right. And I would say that those questions are, it almost seems from what I've dealt with from now dealing with the newbies, the newcomers to this phenomenon, it seems that those questions are very important, because I've talked to so many people who are like, "Oh, I like the idea of lucid dreaming because I want to be able to go spy on people or something like that, or I wanted to go," and it's like they have this very specific idea of how it's going to work, and I feel that it's almost like I was lucky in a way that I had no information when I started this. So I was a blank slate when I was able to approach this. And now we almost have information overload in a way. So I always warn people like, hey, be careful about what information you're picking up off the internet about. There's lots of lucid dreaming groups. There's lots of astral projection, subreddits and all that kind of stuff. And, there's so many groups out there, and everybody's got an opinion out there. And it's almost like it kind of taints you a little bit of how this is going to work. You start putting it into a narrative. You start locking this idea of what it's all about into this enclosed system, and you go, I'm trying to get to this idea, and you have to find a new approach. That's how it seems to me. There's good reasons to approach it, and there's some bad reasons to approach it. So you have to
Yeah.
you have to really know yourself. You kind of have to start going, why, exactly, just like you're saying, why am I really, what is it that really inspires me about this topic, really? And if it is just about, ooh, I want to go, I don't know, go the weirdest, things I've had guys tell me, I'm going to go spy on my girlfriend, and see what she's doing or something like that. It's like, if that's really the end all be all of your interest in this, I think that you're not going to be successful, is my feeling. I think you've got to have a deeper reason. And so
Mhm.
that is all that I've been about since then. I'm trying to get to the core of what is really going underneath all of this phenomenon. And that's my interest.
Tell us about, give us a juicy lucid dream from your life, then one that, you know, people who are tuning into this, maybe they have
Sure.
on the rare case of someone connected to me that has no idea, or you
Sure.
no idea what lucid dreaming is, they've never had one, or they think they've never had one. And yeah, give us a juicy insight into, this is a lucid dream I had.
I've got so many. I have so many, but I'll give you the one that to me stopped my lucid dreaming for about 2 years. It put an end to it because I was so terrified of what was going on after this particular experience that I stopped doing it. It's like I psychologically pulled back from all this. I said, this is too much. I need a break. I need to, because again, like I said, this was going on almost every night for me for years. And each experience, it's like a video game where I just kept leveling up. It's like, oh, can you handle that? Well, now I'm going to throw something brand new at you. And then I got to this experience where I said, done. Hold on. I need to pull back and do something. I have to reevaluate. I needed to meditate is really what it came down to. You need to be, and I stress this constantly, you need to be meditating daily. I mean, if not daily, you've got to pick up a really regular routine of meditating to really be processing all of this strange information that you're going to start tapping into when you start doing this. So in this particular experience, this was now, oh gosh, I was in college when this experience happened. And at this point I had been leaving my body, whatever that means, for probably a couple of years at this point. So I was kind of used to that idea, the idea that I could go and observe what was going on with other, with other people, friends and family and whatnot. But in in this experience, I was back home. It was like around Christmas, as I recall, and I was visiting my folks. They lived outside of Chicago, and I was asleep in the morning, and I went into a lucid state, and from there, I consciously had wanted to get out of my body. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, and one way that seems to work, that seems to be a kind of a universal thing, is it's this sort of rocking that you do. It's as if like, it's kind of like you're just sort of like slipping out of bed. If you ever like tried to slip out of bed really quietly so you don't wake your partner, and you try to kind of like sneak out of the bed real quietly, that sort of thing. I don't know. Women don't seem to do that, so you may not understand that. Guys do that where they're just trying to be quiet. There's a way to do that, to slip out of your body, and it's a way to do it so that you're not jarring your physical body back awake. So I sort of did this technique where I sort of rocked out and sort of slipped out of my body. And at that point I was standing, and that is, when I say I was standing, that's in my astral state, whatever. Right. Again, I don't like those terms, but that's the terms that we've got to use. So I was then standing like kind of at the foot of my bed, and I was just kind of looking around my room, and I was in I was in a weird place. I'm like, oh, okay, this is my childhood room, because I was visiting my folks, and I was just sort of standing there and just kind of collecting myself for a moment, going, okay, well, where do I want to go? What am I doing next? But my mother was already awake. Okay, so she's in the kitchen, and she dropped a bunch of pans in the kitchen, like really this loud clanking sort of, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
When this happened, my physical body started to wake up, okay? But yet my astral self was sort of disconnected. I was standing at the edge of my bed. And so I sort of felt this pull on my astral body, whatever you call it. And I turned to look at my physical body as my physical body woke up.
Wow.
So here's what happened. In that moment, there was this, for me, a terrifying split second where I was in two places at once, consciously, where I was in I could see everything from the perspective of my physical self, just sort of waking up, and I was looking at just the emptiness of my room, but I was also simultaneously standing astrally on the side of my bed, staring at my physical body. So I was like staring at myself, if that makes sense. So just for a moment, I was in two places at once. Let me explain why this was so horrifying. It's because it doesn't make sense. It absolutely this broke me on some fundamental level. In fact, it frightened me to the point where I thought, did I just break something? Did I somehow break, I don't know, like something internally on myself? I don't know what that even meant. But when I described that, you have to understand, of course, that you can't even picture that, because the rational mind can't even imagine what I'm saying right now. When I say simultaneously I had two perspectives, I don't mean, there was like a split screen or a superimposed sort of vision. I'm saying somehow it was two fully integrated perspectives that were completely happening simultaneously. And it, it's like, how do you even process that? My brain, I can't even, even when I remember it, I know that that's what happened, but my brain can't even recollect it properly. So when that happened, I mean, then it's like immediately I snapped back, and then I was just in my physical self, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, and I just sort of like, just listened to my heart beat in my chest for about 5 minutes, because I'm like, okay, what just happened? I was like in two places at once. And then, after I started doing more research, I started reading about this, and again, this is apparently not that uncommon. This is something that people have experienced on many occasions, and that is something that's possible. And it was very enlightening, but it took me a long time to integrate. Like, well, what does that mean? Because we have this idea that consciousness is this compact, isolated thing that can be in one place. And even the idea of astral projection is this idea, oh, well, this ball of light sort of leaves my body and goes somewhere else. And now I don't even necessarily believe that. I don't think consciousness really works like that. I think that it's so much bigger than even that. It doesn't follow any of our logical rules at all. Consciousness, I don't think it has boundaries. It does not have limitations. It's not like the idea of the very question of where consciousness is located, I think doesn't really apply to consciousness in my ultimate view now. I don't think that that's even whatever consciousness is, and I will not claim to know exactly what it is. It's not something, those questions, I think consciousness laughs at those questions, because it's like, it's bigger than that. It's somehow bigger than all of that. It can be in multiple places. It can be in no place. I don't think it was ever born. It'll never be destroyed. It doesn't follow any of our typical rules that we have that we associate with our physical universe, at least. It blows away all of that. So yeah, being in two places at once, that broke me for a while. And what it broke really was my ego on some level, my identity, that what Ian is at the core is something that can be in one place at a time. It's bigger than that. So
And it ties into those questions that we were talking about. When you have something like that happens where you can't fully explain it, you can't understand what just happened, where there seemingly are no boundaries, where everything you think about science or religion or that kind of stuff goes out the window.
it does.
It brings you back to those core questions, and you start thinking, or at least I'm sure it's the same for you, the people who I work with on these topics, it comes back to that point of, well, if there are no boundaries, if you're not stuck just in the human body, if you're not just in this one timeline, what is it that you want to do?
Yes.
Who are you? What do you want to be?
Exactly. What do you want? And that's such a wonderful question that so many people don't ask. Like, what do you really want? Like, because if you can, with all things being equal and you can do anything, what do you really want? And you have to start going towards, your real desires, the things that really inspire you, that really that really make you impassionate. So and that's what my life has been filled with. And it's not just lucid dreaming. I've had so many strange experiences that it seems that the cosmos on some level is just loves to continue throwing that in my face that, oh, you think you know how things work? Well, I'm going to throw this at you. I don't know if you just saw my Facebook thing a couple of days ago. I just saw my second UFO Saturday night. Did you see that by chance?
I did see that you posted. I haven't watched it yet.
It's not a terribly great video because I just wanted to get it down while while it was still fresh in my head, because I find that the thing about the UFOs, and that's another thing where I think that this all connects to this consciousness issue. I don't really understand how Sean McNamara, who we both are kind of friends with, who's written a few books as well. He's kind of got me on this path of starting to really question what is what is the conscious connection with these UFOs, whatever the heck they are, and that blows me away, because that's something that I am seeing from my physical body, from my physical standpoint. I'm looking at something going, this object is doing something that is physically impossible. And I found after my first experience, which was that was like 10 years ago or so, I found that after a while, my mind started deleting parts of the experience. Like, I know that there are things that happened during that experience that I can't remember. And I think it's because the brain doesn't really know what to do with something that doesn't fit into our logical narrative, right? It doesn't know what to do with sometimes information that is just super abstract. So that's why with the second time when it just happened, I said, I'm going to go just talk into a camera and try to, remember exactly what this thing did. And that was my interest with that, to just try to, record as much as I could. But
you're not the first person that I've heard say that. And I think that's also one of the interesting elements with both dreams and psychedelics. We have this dream recall issue. I've had some of the most profound, powerful, lucid dreams, talking with ancestors or deceased relatives, and all these strange, out of this world visitation dreams where you receive a lot of messages, a lot of insight. And those are always the ones where you wake up and it's just like someone's shaken your brain of all the information.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, we just got something happened.
Oh, are you still there?
Oh yeah, you just seemed to glitch for a second. There was a glitch, but no, it seems like we're okay now.
The internet's like, you can't talk about this stuff.
Exactly. That's how it feels like sometimes. Actually, that last experience, I actually had time to call my mother. This went on for so long, my last UFO experience. I was staring at this thing for several minutes, where I actually finally picked up the phone and I'm like, so Ma, I'm staring at a UFO again. And she's just like, oh, that's my son. I'm like, this thing is doing insane things. It's moving at speeds. What I calculated, some of the speeds that this thing was moving at, they're just ridiculous. These things can stop on a dime and then just zip and go in the other direction. I have no idea what I'm looking at. I don't know. It made no sound, no idea what the heck they are. But I was doing these things a couple of months ago where I was kind of consciously summoning UFOs, which whatever that's, I don't know what that is even about, but there's things where you can go out and kind of meditate, do this meditation, and ask them to reveal themselves to you. And again, I'm the skeptic, so I'm always just shaking my head, going, I don't know what to think of all this, but that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really surprised by much. I think,
right.
or not surprised, but I'm just like, of course that can happen.
That's great. I mean, that's awesome that you have that open-mindedness. For me, I'm like a skeptic all the way. Like, for each thing that happens, I'm just going, really? Because there's so much. The problem with these areas of phenomenon is that there's so much misinformation. There's so many people they have a lot of wishes, they have a lot of ideas, like what they'd like to be true. And when someone asks a really in-depth question like online, it's just amazing how you'll just get 100 people, 100 experts on these fields with 100 different responses, and everyone thinks they exactly know what they're talking about. And there's I try to approach these things with as much humility as I can, of just going, I don't know, I have no idea what's going on, but I feel I still have an obligation to just describe of what's happening, describe what I'm seeing, and extend that to others. Maybe that'll help someone else kind of wake up out of their narrative, so to speak.
Sure.
Yeah.
You've spoken a lot about waking up out of your narrative and, meditation, having a meditation practice and
Yes.
working things from the dream, bringing that back into your waking life and then kind of reworking it, going back in. What would you say is, an important part or I don't know, ritual or thing that you're doing now that helps you to really integrate this information and work with all these different layers of reality and narratives going on?
You have to completely step out of your own narrative, and that to me is a basically a Zen meditation. There's I of all I have been studying this stuff for years. I've looked at all kinds of mantras and meditations and techniques for years and years, and I keep coming back to a bare bones Zen meditation. And by that I mean, of course, anyone can Google that, and Zen is a word that is thrown around and used in products and marketing and yada yada yada. But what's beautiful about Zen is that when you look at it at the core, it is the most no frills meditation, which I am a huge proponent of. It is trying to get to that state where you are not visualizing, you are not trying to follow some sort of technique and going, well, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. You are trying to just be aware. You are trying to just be present. So I personally, I do most of the best meditations I do are walking meditations. In fact, my book Migration, at the very end, the whole book works towards this meditation that I'm kind of describing here a little bit. So I feel that that to me has been the best thing to when I walk, and I usually walk at night because it's dark. It's usually quieter at night. It's also cooler, especially during the summer months and whatnot. There's not a lot of distractions. There's not a lot of lights and cars and whatnot, and you can just kind of walk and just try to be present without letting the mind whip up a story of, oh well, I'm going in this direction, and or try to problem solve. If you listen to the crap that's going on in your mind all day long, it's nonstop. It's just constantly problem solving. The brain is a problem solving machine, and we don't live in a culture. We were not raised in a culture that really teaches you how to use the brain properly at all. We are very focused on problem solving, but we don't learn how to stop problem solving, or how to stop telling a story, or how to stop spinning a narrative. And that can come down to, I'm saying, stop all of it for at least 10, 20, 30 minutes a day if you can. At the end of the day, just try to find some time where you are not doing that. Pick up a breathing technique, fine. If you want to sit in the lotus posture, fine. Zen ultimately is not really concerned about all of that. Ultimately, it's only about shutting yourself, the narrative off. It's shutting off all of that, the chatter, and you're trying to get away from all of that, even to the point where you're not even letting the mind identify anything. If you'll find that even as you walk around your neighborhood, you'll go, oh, that's so and so's house, or I know what kind of tree that is. That's an oak tree, and and your mind just constantly wants to chatter, or it'll go, oh, you need to look at your phone now, or you need to do. You're planning, you're organizing, you are problem solving, and what I'm saying is, just stop. If
Yeah.
for every moment you can stop doing that, naturally all of this information is going to start settling. It's like you are finally allowing all of that, all of the particles and all the information, all of the little points of data that we've been swirling through our head, you allow it to settle. And some people never do that. They never allow all of that to just settle, and they never allow themselves to just be conscious, to just be what they are. So to me, that is ultimately the best thing you can possibly do. And I know that that to me is the number one thing that lets me keep going to that next stage that I was talking about. If I'm able to meditate for even just 20 minutes or so, I'm able to kind of jump up to the next level and go, okay, now I've integrated it. And I've lost you again. Hello.
Still there.
No, sorry.
No worries. Yeah, I know. I feel like the culture now, or the society, at least, here in the US, is very much keep picking up your phone. And at least for
Totally.
me, I've noticed that people don't have that anymore. Like, people can't just sit in a car, if you stop to get gas, like, no one will just sit in the car. Everyone gets their phone out.
Right.
Or when you're waiting in line, phone out. When someone leaves to go to the bathroom, just get your phone out. And it's very much like keep processing information. No one's really just sitting still and being just there doing nothing
We're
anymore.
afraid of silence in
Yeah.
this culture. We are afraid of it. Silence really scares people to the point where some people are truly afraid of there not being noise. I don't know if you've ever come across someone who says, I can't stand it when it's super quiet, that sort of thing. And I swear, I think that's mostly in the Western cultures that you see it's an addiction. It's an addiction to information is really what it comes down to. You're addicted to just absorbing more information or problem solving. The mind doesn't know what to do when it's told to stop doing that. The mind only knows how to deal with memory and information that's been stored. When you tell it to shut up, the mind it's like a toddler all of a sudden. Like, it'll fight you. It'll be like, no, I want to, I want stimuli. I want to look at something. I want to be excited. I want to be entertained. I want. And, for me, meditation is all about sitting with that desire, sitting with that wanting, and just going, no, I'm not going. We're just going to sit. You're in timeout. You're in timeout for the next 10 minutes. And it's amazing what happens with your mind when you ask it to do that. And it's like training. The Buddhists used to say it's like training some wild dog or something like that. It's like, it's very much like training some wild animal that does not want to behave. It just wants to consume information and problem solve constantly. And I address all of this in my book. Why are we wired like this? And there's a way around it. I am now the person. I used to be like this. I used to be the media addict. I absolutely was. And I'm not. I can actually. I'm that freak now who can truly leave my phone behind, and I can just ignore it. I can just turn it off, and I don't care. It does not bother me anymore. Well, the reason we didn't do this thing today is because my phone's been partially broken for months, and I don't care.
Yeah.
It's like whatever. It's fine. It doesn't bother me anymore. And you realize that you're not a slave, because when you know what you really are, who you really are, all of that extraneous stuff it starts falling by the wayside, and you aren't being kind of pulled, by the collar anymore by it. So that is what that's to me, that is the purpose behind all of my work, all of my writing, everything, all of the talks that I do. That's what I'm always trying to do, is trying to remove that collar. In fact, in Tripping the Field, I'm not sure how far you got. That's kind of, there's sort of this ongoing metaphor that when the characters become powerful, it's like a leash is being taken off of them. And that's a metaphor that I like, because we are definitely chained by the neck to our brains. So
I agree. And I think it's, like you said, it's a lot of those. It's not really the moments where we're on our iPhones or, typing away like crazy or doing that we come up with the most creative or profound things. It is usually those times where we just sit and be, where we
absolutely.
seemingly seem to actually download meaningful information or have those meaningful thoughts. And it's not just
Totally.
scrolling through information that we don't even necessarily. I feel like it's a lot of searching. Like, people sit scrolling,
Yep.
searching for something to mean something, and a lot of it is just crap.
And they don't know what they're looking for, really. It's just this desire. Like you said, it's just a kind of this empty desire to just keep searching and looking and looking. But, well, what is it that you think is really going to satisfy you? What is it that you think you're going to find that's
Yeah.
really going to satisfy you? And when you start looking at those deeper questions, you start getting into the core of what's really going on. And what you said about the best the best insights come to people when you are quiet. And we know this from every uh, person in history who has any notoriety in science or literature or any kind of arts or anything. Einstein would say that, or not even just Einstein, but Isaac Newton, I believe too, would say that uh, he had the best insight, not when he was sitting at his desk and figuring out formulas or anything like that, but when he was staring at his fire at the end of the day, just doing nothing, that sort of thing. And there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of wisdom to that, definitely. And I lost you again. I don't know why. It's just glitching.
We've gone too far. There you are.
Yeah, there we go. I don't know what's going on. Anyway.
Go through it. Yeah, well, the other interesting part of that, or I guess synchronization to that, at least for me, was having these other practices that you do on your own, like knitting or artwork or reading, and these kind of
Yes.
quiet times with yourself. Obviously, you're an artist, you have Iboga Moon. So tell us a bit more about that. What's Iboga Moon? What does it mean? What kind of art are you producing?
So yeah, so Iboga Moon, that is just where I house. It's kind of like the larger name that I house all of my projects, because I am an artist and a writer, and I have been a cartoonist off and on. That is not something I'm working on right now. I can only do so much at a time. I'm trying to kick out this second book right now, but uh, Iboga Moon is what all of that is where all of my projects are housed under, essentially. And for my art, at least, all of my art is, I'm trying to capture what I see in my lucid visions. That is always what I'm trying to do. So when I create an art piece, I am always aiming towards trying to really uh, trying to get across the visions that I'm seeing in these states. So I'm hoping that when someone sees it, they might just get a little glimpse, a little bit of, I'm trying to share, I'm trying to share what it is that I'm seeing. That is the whole, that's everything. That's what I'm trying to always do. So whether it's the articles or the books or the art, I'm trying to connect what it is that I have experienced in these states. And the thing that I often forget to mention is that these states they're ecstatic. I mean, it is pure ecstasy to be in some of these states sometimes. And we often forget to talk about that. Like, by the way, this is pure euphoria often. I mean, it is just amazing. I mean, it can be frightening too if you're dealing with some of your subconscious demons. Don't get me wrong. There can be some, but there's beauty in that too, in another sense. But, and I've been someone who has not been shy around medicinal plant use or drugs or anything like that. So, and I will still say that my most euphoric experiences have been in the lucid dream states. There is a pure euphoria to them, and it's not, of course, just what you're seeing. It's that you are finally outside of your cage. You're outside of your typical the cage that we have for our identity. We are removed from that temporarily, and there's bliss in those states. So I'm trying to share that. I'm trying to kind of point people in that direction, and if it's whether it's whatever medium I can possibly get at them. So and definitely when I'm painting, I'm kind of going into those states, and I'm stepping back, going, yeah, that's I can know when I'm looking at my art, I know whether or not I'm hitting it, whether I'm connecting with the right kind of vibration or frequency that I pick up in some of these visions. So that is the whole point. Yes.
Love that. So I know we're getting to the end of the hour. Just for some of those people who maybe missed the beginning of this, tell us again about your new book, Migration, maybe some of who it's for, who would be interested in any of what it includes.
So on the surface, migration is a study of media, and both of my books, Tripping the Field and Migration, again, all of these links, you can find them on ianjaydid.com. I'm sure you're going to add all of that. But all of them, there's ways to look at it from a couple different levels. In one way, tripping the field, for example, is just it's an adventure, that kind of like an Indiana Jones kind of style of adventure, where these characters are running around the world trying to kind of solve this mystery, and there's all these, there's this crazy adventure going on. But then, of course, there's something much deeper going on behind all of that, and that goes on and on for many layers. But migration, the current one, it looks on its surface, it's in many ways you can take it as just a study of media, why we react to media the way we do. We are creatures, first of all, that with bodies that have evolved on a very predator prey landscape. And we are, the reason it's called migration is because we are very much migrating as a species into a very new environment, more and more by the day now. We are moving into the matrix, so to speak. And that is, and I don't mean not, I don't just mean that in terms of the movie The Matrix, where they're actually plugging themselves in, but we are trying to get to that point. Elon Musk is trying to, revolutionize some of these things, like with Neuralink. I talk about some of the technologies where we are literally trying to really connect biology and software in a way that is bringing up it, it's going to be a game changer. And but we're already there in the point that we're migrating more and more into this digital universe. All of our time and energy and our attention is more and more spent on the internet. And that is a very symbolic environment. And that is not the environment that our minds and our bodies have been evolving on for hundreds of thousands of years. So there's going to be a heck of a lot of confusion in this transfer. And I try to break that down with this book of explaining why, by the way, why do we respond to media the way we do? Why are we addicted to all of this stimuli that we're seeing? Exactly what's going on. So I look at it in terms of, well, how are we wired? Why are we wired to look at all of this? So I go into our fight and flight responses. I go into our endogenous drug responses. Like, what is it that kicks in adrenaline when we're seeing something, or why do we have the oxytocin kicked in when we're viewing something? And again, the whole endeavor for migration is to ultimately try to get the reader to look at this relationship that your mind has with media, and to hopefully start realizing that you are not anymore connected to the media that's going on in front of you, then you are, as an identity, your mind, the physical brain or body. You're not any of these things. I'm trying to detach I'm trying to free the reader's consciousness from its limitations. And I'm doing this through example, so to speak. I'm using media as a way to look at the study of how the brain works. And so that's what we're getting at. And I think that it would be like a great place to start if you were trying to get into lucid dreaming or astral projection. Pick up this book, go read through it, and then I think you're going to start looking at this world from the right mindset. I'm going to be curious to see what the responses and the reactions are going to be to this book. I have a feeling that maybe people might actually start, kind of starting to wake up a little bit just from reading from reading the book. But if nothing else, it's a wonderful place to start. So you're going to get the core principles of what perspective this really takes to get into this world, to get into this framework of where I'm coming from. When I talk about that your consciousness is unlimited and boundless, this is where you should start. Take a look at this book. Take a look at what I'm describing, and then I think you can start picking up other specific techniques, and I think they're going to come much easier to you. It's all going to click when you start putting all of it together. Maybe a dream journal, and some of the reality checks that the typical things that come with lucid dreaming techniques. I think it's a great companion for anyone trying to wake up, whether that's in your daily life or if it's in your nightlife. Either way, it's intended to wake you up.
Oh, thank you so much. It sounds incredible. I
I hope
cannot
so.
wait to get my coffee for sure. Um,
Wonderful.
and yeah, I really appreciate you just sharing all this
Oh,
today,
thank you, Lana. That was awesome. Thank you.
going over the 30 minutes. I knew that we wouldn't be able to talk 30 minutes.
I know I was concerned, like, really 30 minutes, huh? It's a lot to cram in, but okay.
Like I think at the last meeting, as you said with Sean, we were like, I think we could talk for several days right now.
Sure.
But
Good.
I really appreciate you sharing this and being able to cram it all into a small space where people can, maybe get some ideas from this talk over this past hour. So that's awesome.
I appreciate it because this is really the first time I've talked about this book, so I'm still a little rusty. I'm it takes a while to really completely be able to not just I've wrapped my head around it, but then to present it in a way that makes sense to other people. That's a whole other trick. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. So thanks.
Sure. So my last question to you, which I asked to everyone on here, is there anyone else in this kind of field doing any works with consciousness, dream work, psychedelics, anything in the realms that you would love to have on here that we can, pick their brain a little bit?
Oh gosh, all of my heroes are dead. So it's terrible. I've really been now that I'm kind of finishing my own book right now. I'm going to start getting more into Sean McNamara's work, but I know that you've had him. You have already spoken to him, haven't you, or no? Oh, that would be awesome. I would really love an in-depth conversation to see how that goes.
Great idea.
I think that would be an excellent idea. Have you also spoken? Have you done one with Reese?
No, but he's been requested, I think, every single.
And we just glitched. I'm not. Sorry. But yeah, Reese Jones. Yeah, I think that he'd be a real interesting character. I'd love to do a podcast just with Reese as well at some point. So maybe that'll happen. So yeah, that'd be great.
Well, again, thank you so much. And
thank you.
We'll maybe have to do a part 2 once Migration comes out and you've read it, and we can go
That'd
back.
be great. That'd be awesome. Thank you, Lana.